Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message I posted it I think yesterday on Facebook. Then I had to ask one of our admins to give us a translation, and this is the translation that I received from one of our admins. The translation reads like this: Hello brother Nashi, how are you? I have come here to confess. Please, when you post my story, hide my identity because I am afraid to be known. There are other people that follow your channel that know me. So if you post my name, they will recognize my name. The kind of a secret that I have been keeping, it is not a nice secret. It will cause division amongst my relatives. I want to confess that I was once sent by my mother to go and collect some soil on top of my grandfather's grave. The reason why she had sent me to go and collect this soil on top of my grandfather's grave, I do not even know. After that, she then gave me an instruction. She told me that I was supposed to go and throw that soil that I had collected from my grandfather's grave in her sister's-in-law kitchen. To those who grew in the village, they know how an African compound looks like. There will be a lot of rooms on the side. Then there will be a round hut that will be in the middle. We used to use that round hut as a cooking kitchen, and inside that round hut that will be in the middle of a compound, there will be a fire that will keep on burning. So my mom told me that I was supposed to go and throw that soil that I had collected from my grandfather's grave on top of that place where her sister-in-law used to make fire. My mother woke me up one early morning. It was around 4 a.m. She walked with me to the graveyard because in our culture, we usually bury our loved ones near the fields where we plant the maize or close to our compounds. So when my mom woke me up at around 4 a.m., we went to the graveyard where we bury our loved ones. When we arrived at that graveyard, she then pointed on the grave of my grandfather who gave birth to my father. Then she told me what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to go and collect some soil on top of his grave, and I was supposed to place that soil that I had collected from my grandfather's graveyard in my pockets. I took that soil, then I offered some of the soil back to her because I had not yet understood the instruction and the reason why we were doing all of these things that we were doing. But she refused to touch that soil. She insulted me. She was really angry. The reason why she was angry, it was because I had attempted to hand over this soil to her. It seemed as if my own mother didn't want anything to do with that soil that I had collected from my grandfather's graveyard. I was really scared, my brother, because at 4 a.m. in the morning, it was still dark, yet there we were, me and my mother, standing at the graveyard as if we were witches. But I was afraid to refuse to go to the graveyard with my mom. Even when we were still standing in that graveyard, I was afraid to complain because my mother was someone who was feared by the whole village. She was so much feared that she didn't speak twice. When she said something, the whole village was going to do it, and there was no one who even attempted to go against anything that she had said must be done. After I collected that soil on top of my grandfather's grave, me and my mom, we walked back to our compound. So in our culture, the way that we structure our compounds is like this. When you give birth to baby boys, and when those boys grow up so much that it will be time for them to get married, then as a parent, it will be your duty to give them some land. Usually, this land that you will give to them, it will be land that would have been given to you by your own forefathers. This was done so as to keep the family together. So my father's compound and my father's younger brother's compound, it was right next to each other. So the compound which my mom wanted me to go and throw the soil that I had collected from the graves it was a compound that belonged to my father's younger brother, and she wanted me to go and throw that soil in her sister-in-law's kitchen. So when we arrived back at our compound, she waited for a couple of minutes until it was somewhere around 5 a.m. That is when she called me. She told me that I had to hurry and go and ask for fire from her sister-in-law. I had to go and lie to her sister-in-law that our fire in our kitchen had died down, and when I had entered into her sister's-in-law's kitchen, then I was supposed to throw that soil that I had in my pockets in the fire. After I had thrown the soil into the burning fire, when I was walking away from her sister's-in-law's compound, she told me that when I was walking away from her sister's-in-law's compound, there were some words which were ritualistic in nature that I was supposed to mention. She said that as I was walking away, I was supposed to say, "Dear grandfather, why are you still sleeping in your grave? Why are you still sleeping in your grave as if you are an old man? Don't you know that you are a young man? Get up, rise up from the dead. Don't you want to burn like an eternal fire that keeps on burning forever?" These were the words that I said as I was walking away from my mother's sisters-in-law compounds. And at the time when my mom made me to perform this satanic ritual, I was in grade 9 by that time. I went over there and I found my mom's sister-in-law. She was busy preparing some lunch boxes for her kids to go to school. So I then started speaking with her, pretending that I was just having a normal conversation with her, and I was waiting for the right opportunity so that I can throw the soil into the fire. When she was not looking, that is when I threw that soil into the fire. But at the exact moment when I threw the soil that I had collected from my grandfather's graveyard into that fire, something exploded as if a bomb had exploded in that fire. My mother's sister-in-law, she was shocked. Then she started shouting at me and insulting me. The reason why she was shouting at me, she thought that maybe I had thrown something in the fire that was explosive in nature, because me and her kids, we used to do this a lot. We would go into the nearby bushes, then we would collect this kind of a fruit. People who come from Zim, they know this fruit. It usually does not grow big. It is called nundurwa. When you throw that fruit into the fire, it will explode. So on that day when I was performing that satanic ritual, and she didn't even know that I was performing an evil ritual on her family, she just thought that I was being naughty, but I was actually performing a ritual that I was sent to perform by my mother. After I had performed that ritual, I went back to our own compound, and when I arrived at my mother's compound, I found my mother. She was standing naked right behind her bedroom, looking at the direction of the graveyard, at that place where we had collected the soil from my grandfather's graveyard. Out of embarrassment, I didn't speak with her. I just entered into our kitchen. Then I waited for her to finish off whatever she was doing, because I didn't want to look at my mom whilst she was naked. After my mom had made me to do all of these rituals, suddenly there was an accident in the family. Even up until today, no one knows how my uncle exactly died. The only thing that we know is that my uncle used to go around the villages digging wells. Back in those days, there was no boreholes. People had to manually dig the wells. When he was digging a well for water, then the well that he was digging collapsed on him, and that is how he died. But my brother, that was the beginning of a horror story that happened in our family. For about 3 years, a lot of people died in our family. Then after 3 years, it was as if someone has just pressed the pause button. But in those 3 years, people that died in our family, there are 15 people, including children and adults. And now, if you were to drive to our home back in the village, you will find out that at our home, there is a lot of graves, because in those 3 years, 15 people died in our family. Adults and children, they all died. 15 of them. My mother is still alive. There are many times when I keep on asking myself, when I go back to Zim, should I ask her why she made me to perform that ritual, and why soon after performing that ritual, that is when the horror story started to happen in our family. Right now, I am so scared, Brother Nashi, because my mother, she is someone who is really scary. What I have noticed about my mother is that you have to keep her happy all the times, because there was this other brother of mine. He came to South Africa looking for better opportunities. When he arrived in South Africa, he really had a good job because he was working as a mechanic. But I do not know how him and my mother never got along. But the only thing that my mother told me is that since he has decided to eat his money on his own, then let his money take care of him. At that time, I didn't even know the consequences of that curse that my mom had placed on my younger brother. And now it has been about 8 years since my mom placed that curse on my brother. We have been trying to look for my brother. We don't even know where he is. This is my own secret that I have been keeping in my heart. Dear listeners, right there was a message that I received. Then I posted it yesterday on Facebook. Then I had to ask one of our admins for a translation. Let us thank her for the translation, because it was really difficult to translate this story. Please let us meet again in the following episode.